Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long timeline. Please follow me on Twitter at Schnell Investor, and you can also find my blogs on gregschnell.com as well as StockCharts.com. So the market's been trying to rally and continuing to roll over. This week I'd like to cover off the miners, and one of the reasons I want to cover it off is I think it's timely. I'm starting to notice a couple of the mining stocks getting ready to turn higher, and anyway, it's always nice to tell you before they move instead of after they move, so at least it'll give you something to focus on over the next little while. My data obviously still says that the charts are weak because the market keeps hitting new lows, but on the indexes. But underneath the surface, the commodities are doing very well, and the large tech names that have carried the market higher for so long have been pulling back. And so the indexes are falling even though the whole commodity section is raging forward. So I want to cover off the fact that some of the miners are starting to break the trend and a look across the metals industry. I don't want to cover off gold or silver. I want to focus in on the industrial metals. I think they're the key to the next EV move, electric vehicle move. They all need to start moving much higher in order for us to have the capacity to produce the metals that we need to make the electric vehicles and the electric grid. So with that, we're going to jump in here. So this is my chart list, and it's got whatever, call it 50 or 100 charts in here about that are metal miners. And I've sorted them by the scooter ranking. And what does that mean? So when we talk about the scooter ranking compares everything to its peers. So as an example, if you had 10 sports teams, the one with the most wins is at the top. Well, what happens in the scooter ranking is we divide them into groups of large, mid, and small cap. And then from that grouping, we have different measurements to test them against. So position above the 200-day moving average, some stuff around the 150, the 50, the 20, the 14, and the 3-day. So really a wide range of time frames to try and figure out what's actually turning higher. And so that's what we're going to cover off, is I've sorted them based on the strongest stocks in that scooter ranking. The one thing that I hope you'll agree by the time we're done this is I like to focus on the new ones breaking out. As they start to turn higher, they move through the 75 level. That can be a good fishing hole. And other ones that were left for dead down around 25%, and they're starting to work their way higher. We could also run scans to do that. Today, when I want to focus on a little bit about the overall position of the industry, so not just a bunch of charts firing through, but the overall position of the industry, and then to start to be aware of what's really starting to work. So here's Mosaic, and it's potash stock. Albemarle is a lithium stock. Methanex is a company making methane. Another fertilizer stock. Nutrien is another potash name. So those names are starting to percolate to the top. But I also want to cover off companies like Teck Resources and some of the other smaller metal companies like Lundin Mining and Ivanhoe Mining and First Quantum Minerals. All those types of names are starting to rise up here, and so I think there's an opportunity. They've been in long downtrends, and hopefully as we start to walk through them, you'll see the difference in them. So I've got them all set up here in a list, but what I want to show for the most part is the steel names had done quite well, and then they rolled over. Copper names rolled over roughly in March. And some of these other names, like this one, Ferroglobe, it just continues to climb higher. It's working really, really well. Nothing wrong with the chart at all here. These potash names, like CF Industries, just breaking above 56.84. You can see a nice push here. Everything turning up on this, and look at the volume that came in over the last 4 weeks. So if it needs a little bit of a break to consolidate here just above the prior highs, I wouldn't be surprised. But this is making new, call it almost 2-year highs in relative strength. That's pretty bullish. One of the things to think about when looking for scans or for strong stocks is if they're starting to outperform the S&P 500, there's multiple time frames we could look over. So one is it better than the S&P 500 from 3 months ago, who has moved up more, or 6 months ago, or a year ago, or a day ago? You can do all different kinds of time frames, but big institutions will look to 3 month, 6 month, 12-month relative strength levels. And if it's outperforming on a short term, a midterm, and a long term, that will really help. So when you see something that's sitting up here at a 12-month high, that's very, very bullish. Now, in this case, we're just breaking to new 3-month highs and also to new 12-month highs and 6-month highs, right? So all of a sudden, all three of these are starting to fire off a signal. But what I like the most is the PPOs bouncing off zero. And normally, when you look at a lot of charts, a lot of weekly charts, you'll notice when this PPO starts to bounce and turn above zero, that's a pretty nice place to get on board. Now, the stock was, call it $45 4 weeks ago. It's $60 now. That's a 25% move. Hard to jump onto that, but you can see it did that off the lows the last time and then kind of still meandered up. There is a food problem out here, so all of the fertilizer names look pretty good as an industry group. This Methanex had a huge run, pulled back for most of the year, and is now starting to trend up. And it's this change in trend. So we see what was relatively strong breaking down and then starting to climb back out of here. We don't want to forget about these good names, and I think that's where we're at in the mining sector. Is a lot of the really robust trades that we had in copper-related companies and that kind of thing. We have the opportunity to get back into them when they start to turn higher, so we want to watch for that. So essentially, we're looking for this pattern: up, down, and now starting to turn. And so some things that happen at the turn: the PPO turns up, the full stochastic starts to improve above the 20% level. And again, just a brief recap on what full stochastics does. It keeps track of the range of the price action for the last 14 weeks. It says, where am I in that range? High, low, medium, whatever. It takes an actual value. And then it smooths it out over the last 4 weeks. And so when it smooths that out, what happens is as the stock turns, you might not get the signal on the first week, but then the next week, all of a sudden, this thing starts to jump up. So if you have PPOs, full stochastics rising above a 20% level, that's pretty good. Just historically, you'll start to see that's a nice place to get on board, like it was back here. This looks pretty good in here. So you start to see them turn. Now the relative strength should start to improve. So it's one thing that the stock starts to go higher. It's another that the stock starts to go higher and outperform the S&P 500. So in this case, the S&P 500, let's say it's down 0.5% or 1% on the week. This stock's up 6% this week already, and it's only Tuesday night. So stock's definitely outperforming. And then what happens when it outperforms? Of course, that attracts more institutional investors, and you can get a really nice ride just following what is outperforming. So looking through, you want to make sure that your relative strength to the S&P 500 is pushing higher. I think that's a strong value. And then looking at Albemarle here, this is a lithium company. Now, one thing we want to be worried about, see how it's making a lower high here? That can be a little bit of a concern, but it's still up at 10%. It would be different if it was making a lower high around 1 or 2%, but it's making a lower high around 10%. That's still quite strong. The stock has a lot of positive momentum. So even if it pulled down to this 5% level and then just kind of wobbled around here, nothing wrong with that. That would be great. So in this case, what we want to see is we don't really want to see new 3-month lows in relative strength. And we'd like to see if there's a big uptrend, and so we could draw a line all the way across these lows. And as long as it's staying above the general uptrend, we're pretty happy. Just let it work. That's that's one way to go. So to me, that looks pretty good. Now here's Mosaic. This one's just a whisker. What is it? 38.52. So it has broken through the prior highs now. It's getting ready to run again. PPO is just turning up above zero. Relative strength is starting to turn up, and it's about at 3-month highs or 4-month highs. It would take like a whisper of a push to get it up to be above the June highs, May, June. And then all of a sudden you're at new 2-year highs in relative strength. Scooter ranking suggests it's one of the strongest moving price action. So you get the feeling quite quickly the stock could run. And if it ran like this for 10 months, outperforming its peers, that's a really good place to get on board. So these are all the types of things that I like to look at. So compared to its peers, how's the stock doing? Compared to the S&P 500, and the difference in the peer group, like as an example, this is the Scooter ranking for mid-caps. So it's a mid-cap company. Once you get into the large cap company, you're up against Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, all of that kind of thing. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, all of the large caps are together. Now, in the mid cap group, obviously quite diverse and can move a lot faster. This was a $5 stock in 2020. It's a $50 stock now, so it's a 10x in 18 months. That's pretty good living. What we don't want to do is have that slip away. But so far, we still have relative strength rising. We're at 2-year highs in relative strength. And if all of a sudden all of this started to turn down meaningfully, then you'd have an exit strategy, right? It's the opposite of what we're looking for to get in. But what I like to see is either the Scooter ranking moving up above 25, the Scooter ranking moving up above 75, and starting to outperform its peers. And as it does that can help us look. So here's Nutrien. I wrote about this in an article on the StockCharts platform and GregSchnell.com platform just last night, and talking about how these fertilizer names are starting to break out, but the stock's gently pushing up 1.5% this week. Again, the indexes have been struggling a bit, so this stock is breaking out to new all-time highs while the indexes struggle. To me, that's a strong sign of relative strength and could start the next trend higher for us. So this thing's at 5% and starting to turn higher. Pretty bullish. Here's Vedanta. This is a steel company, just kind of grinding sideways. Not really here to talk about steel today, but want to talk more about the copper miners and some of the other metal miners. So here's TROX Specialty Chemicals trying to break out to new highs. But again, all of these strong stocks have a characteristic. Their Scooter ranking is strong because they're outperforming their peers. The relative to the S&P 500, making sure that they're not just outperforming, I'll call it a bunch of weak companies, they're outperforming the 500 biggest large caps out there on the S&P. And then the full stochastic tells us where we are in the price move. Now, you're back up at all-time highs. There's nothing wrong with buying it up here. The full stochastic can stay up here for a long time in a big uptrend. So these are just clues that we want to use to help confirm our bias. Now, I'm up around the 90% here. On my Scooter ranking, I can go, well, we'll just finish a few of these and then I'll go a couple of pages in and we'll get down around 75%. Here's Teck Resources, gently pushing higher here, trying to get through prior all-time highs. Again, copper, cobalt, zinc, all that kind of stuff. When I did my railway trip through the Rocky Mountains last week, I saw tons of this stuff from Teck Resources, their copper project at Highland Valley Copper, their Elk Valley coal for met coal for smelting steel and that kind of thing. They have cobalt, zinc, lots of other types of rare earth metals. Quite an interesting company. Again, a breakout here is going to be pretty bullish. Your PPO turning up at around 5%. That's just a strong stock. Look at the Scooter ranking up around 90. Hopefully it can just keep on going. I'm going to skip forward again here to about the third one. And the reason I want to do that is to get my Scooter ranking. You'll start to see how the stocks, those first ones had kind of already broken out and some were just starting to make new highs. If you were trying to buy them a little closer to a pullback, what we want to find is the stock price action has improved. Here's the full stochastic turning up. Relative strength is flat on this particular stock, hasn't really started to move. It's over a 4-month period, just gone sideways. What we want to see is this actually start to surge higher. But look at the stock, it's all set up. It's gone sideways for roughly 4 months. When we look at the PPO, it's coming down and it looks like it wants to bounce off zero and head higher to me. And so watching this stock, good idea. What we can do, we'll just click on it and let's just go pick a different time frame. So here's your 60-minute. So you can see it made a high back in early September around this level, a high in here. So you're at 1220 or 1240, depending on your trading style. If your 60-minute starts to turn up, your daily turns up, and your weekly turns up, that's just good bias. You can have the 60-minute turn up, but you can have the weekly in a big downtrend, so you can have a short-term whip higher on the 60-minute, and yet it doesn't show on the larger picture. You're still in a big downtrend. What we want to find is something that has either pulled back while in a big uptrend, or we want to find something that's just about to start a new uptrend. And typically the way that works is all of a sudden the momentum in multiple time frames starts to line up. So your short, medium, or short, daily, and weekly all start to flip higher. So in this case, it looks like that's what's about to happen. This is Resolute Forest Products. It's sideways. For me, if I was to buy it, I want to hold it in around 1220. As it breaks through 1240, I'm happy. And my stop would go very close if it starts to break under this, let's say, 1195 level. I probably just want out now. It's been holding on the bottom of this Keltner band, so I probably want to give it the strength of the Keltner band to stand on. But if it starts to break below that, then that would be an exit for me. The reason I cover that off differently than just somebody saying you got a PPO cross. Well, is it on a daily, on a weekly, on an hourly? Obviously, you can be in a big weekly uptrend and still have some pullback for 3, 4, 5 weeks. And you don't want to get kicked out of a trade if you're in a long-term trade based on 60-minute indicators. So you want to make sure that your PPO is still rising, you've got good strong momentum, and if it's a pullback within an uptrend, that makes it easier to buy on and kind of get the lift you're looking for. Okay, so I'm just going to flip through here. Here's Century Aluminum. You can just start to see it's at resistance here around $15. And if it could start to break out of here, now all of a sudden we're at 4-month highs. That's bullish. You can see the downtrend in relative strength is breaking, starting to push up. PPO is giving us a positive cross as it moves back to zero. To me, I like this. I can put this trade on. I don't really think there's a lot of downside just because of the demand in all of the metals. But if I was focused on that, then maybe my stop goes just below the 40-week moving average or something like that. We've been above it for 3 weeks, but a close on the week below the 40-week moving average would just say something's changing and maybe move along. Okay, Constellium, this is another aluminum company, just grinding sideways, same sort of idea. Doesn't really look ready to pop yet. This is still sloping down, full stochastic still down, and your relative strength to the S&P 500 is roughly flat over the last 4 weeks. I actually would prefer it goes down and then actually starts to twist its way higher. Okay, I said I wasn't going to cover gold, so we'll keep going. Sealed Air Corp, full stochastic trying to turn back up. Our relative strength is weaker than the S&P 500, so it doesn't really make me want to jump on this as a trade to start going long when my relative strength is still weak. Now, I can draw a trend line across here, and when that starts to break, that makes me more interested. I'd genuinely be looking to start picking something up if that was to happen. And you can see here when this downtrend in relative strength broke and it started to improve, that was not a bad time to try and get on board. So uranium's been an interesting trade lately. It shot up a few weeks ago and has pulled back now, just kind of hovering sideways. The real question is are people going to okay uranium energy anywhere near them as we end up in this power shortfall that we're having. So we want to watch these stocks. If they start to break out to new fresh all-time highs, what does that tell you? That's a pretty bullish signal. And when we look at Cameco, it just did that. It just broke out to new highs. So that's pretty bullish. And then I guess it was about 4 weeks ago, but it basically spiked, pulled back, and is now giving you a chance to buy in roughly around where it did its original breakout. Valvoline, I'm not going to get into that one. Univar, okay. So we'll just keep moving forward. So here's Nucor Steel. It's pulling back. It's not at a place I want to look at it yet. Everything's still downtrending. I want to try and find, maybe just I'll go over here and do it the quick way. Just looking for some of the company names that I'm recognizing. Here's Commercial Metals. This is a great example. So what you see here, the stock has gone sideways for pretty much 6 months. PPO is trending down, and the full stochastic has just started to turn up, and relative strength has been trading relatively close to the S&P 500 over the last 6 months. So it's definitely not here to buy right now, but what the point we want to look at is on this chart, we can see the stock has been consolidating for 4 or 5 weeks. Last 3 weeks closed relatively tight. Let's call it $32. And then if we go back a little farther, this has been a friction level trying to get going. We had it back in this period here, and then it broke out. And now we're holding in this same period. So my question is, can this turn and burn higher? And if my answer is yes, then I'm looking for a breakout above 32.50. That break gets me in, and my stop goes relatively tight right underneath here until it gets moving higher. But I like that my full stochastic has already turned. And what's that saying? It's saying that the price has moved back up above the bottom of the range after going below. So nice. It's a good hint. Now we could go to a daily chart to try and find other information about it. Like as an example, here's your PPO on the daily. Can it start to turn higher and run out of there? So just a different way to look at it. But the point I want to make is some of these charts specifically are starting to look a little bit better. Just trying to, here's Marietta Minerals. On here, let's go to a daily chart just to bring it in a bit more. So this stock bounced, consolidating sideways. And again, we've still got a bit of a downtrend here. But to me, after the pullback that these stocks have had already, I don't want to get too bearish. They're commodities. They're needed. So let's just say that this does double bottom here. So you're looking for it to kind of squeeze into this triangle and then all of a sudden break out to the top side. How you want to trade that, so you can either trade it right up here, and if it starts to break down, get out relatively soon, or you can trade it all the way down at the bottom if it gives you one more chance, and then try to buy it, and you can set your stop really close there. All depends on your trading style. But again, this was a $390 stock. It's $335, so call it a $60 pullback, roughly 15%. Is that enough that the selling won't go on any further? Maybe not. Maybe this isn't the right one. But the idea behind these is not to wait until the big moves have happened. It's to watch them turn. So this is one called Hudbay Minerals. It's a Canadian company. It's one of my favorites. But I'll show you what's going on here on the stock right now over the last 6 months. But you see this big pullback. So this was $9.50, drops to $5.25. Almost 475 would have been a 50% retracement. So it's pretty deep. My question is, how low is this going to go? And I don't think a lot lower. But it's important to just understand scale on stuff here. I'm just going to get the percentage change. But off this low, a run up to this level already, this is a 23%. Now, we're not going to buy the low. But my point would be, This is a 23% move. So this is a 17% drop and a 23% move higher from here. But when we look at the total drop off the top, right, going down, that's a big move, minus 45%. I don't, like, even strong stocks can have a 45 or a 50% pullback. The real question is, do you think these materials are out of demand right now? And to me, I don't. So I'm looking for this breakout. So in this case, if we just use my Keltner bands or the 100-period moving average, or any one of a number of ideas, I think the real question here is, as it starts to break out, let's say above 650, that's been at least a 6 or 7 week consolidation. Any sort of move above that might mark a better change in trend. Now, we had that back here and it broke out and then failed. Failed breakouts happen for sure. I think the bigger thing is we're getting down at a 45% pullback, that the stock's priced in most damage it's going to get with such high demand right now. There's a bit of an issue around supply. Supply chains working smoothly. I agree with all of that. The question is when does that start to get priced in? And I think the governments are focused on trying to improve the supply chain conundrum. So once you get government's attention on it, then investors can go back and say, okay, let's start looking for upside in this stock, not problems in the stock. And I think where it starts to show up is on our momentum indicator. This should start to turn positive. So it's a change like that I want to look for to start to see. Let's go find Southern Copper just to wrap up here. And this has a really weak scooter ranking, and so it's been out of favor. And here's Rio Tinto, and here's BHP Billiton. These things have been right out of favor. I don't think they're going to stay out of favor very long. The scooter ranking was up around 70 or 75, but I actually expected that these would start to bounce right around the 40-week moving average. Clearly they haven't, but this was an $82 stock. It's now $55. How bearish do you want to get on these names? So for me, I want to start to look for breakouts. So let me give you one example. And I bought this stock today, so I'm not trying to sell you on the idea that I bought it, because I won't be telling you when I get out. So you have to do your own due diligence. But if we just go to something like a Lundin Mining, this chart's obviously big downtrend, right? So the first thing I see when I look at it, it was trading sideways, took off like a rocket, and it's now pulled back and is almost right back to the level it broke out at. Call it 815. We got down to 856, close enough for government work. I want to see a couple of things happen on my daily chart to do this. And so one of the things I see is, first of all, the stock is starting to break this downtrend, and it's not much. It's literally just whiskering over the line. But this is like a 3-week high, so that's good. We're almost 50% off the highs. And the other thing I like is that my PPO trend that comes down here is starting to break. So I can put this on here. And if this stock breaks out through here, to me, that's a buy signal. We've changed the momentum in the name and it starts to turn up. So again, none of them have started to turn up. I get that. The thing that I'm looking for is, as they start to turn, I want to buy as close as I can to the lows because it's a commodity, and watch for the breakout to the upside. Hopefully that helps you understand what to look for as the market changes from downtrends to uptrends and gives you some ideas. I think materials are one place to look over the next, call it, month. Thank you for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.